I constantly think about your childhood being your friend.
You do?
Which is like really weird.
Whoa, okay.
I don't know. I got into the public eye at like 16 and not even nearly to the scale that you have experienced. And I had such a profound like level of challenge with it. Like it was so hard, and I'm just now sort of figuring it out and getting to a place where like I'm able to manage the psychological impact.
But that's a blessing that you've gotten there as well.
I don't even know, and I still don't have it figured out, but like I think about if it would have happened to me younger and how that would have impacted me. And I'm like, I can't tell, like, would you say that it's made you sort of immune in some ways? I know that the answer is no, but maybe in some ways, yes. Has it made you immune in some ways? Do you feel like you have a thicker skin because of it? Has it maybe had the opposite impact and made you more vulnerable in some ways? Like, how do you think that has impacted your mental state throughout the years?
I think it's like a little bit of everything almost. Like it has made me tougher, but it also has made me a little bit more vulnerable, or maybe a little sensitive to certain things. But I think also like there is no comparison in like how it happened to you and how it happened to me. But I think that it was like different times also, because you think about like when our show started, there wasn't Instagram,
That's true.
There wasn't social media like it is today. So I think that it was just a little different. It almost felt like, I've thought about it before, where like it's a little Hannah Montana-y in the way of like I didn't have a disguise, or I didn't have like a physical shift. But I think that there was a sense, and I say Kylie and I because she's not only my sister, but we're so close in age, and I very thankfully got to do it with like a partner. You know what I mean? And we went to school. Like we went to school as long as we could. I started homeschool 11 and 12. I did homeschool 11th and 12th grade. But up until then, I did, regular school. So even though we had a TV show at home, we were going to regular school all day and had our friends that we had from before the show started. So I owe a lot of like, I think, the ease to it, which it wasn't always easy, but it did feel kind of normal just because we were in school for so long, and we did have our group of friends, and we lived as much of like a normal life as I think was possible. And I'm like so grateful for that, because I do feel like although there were definitely struggles, especially when we got a little bit older and people started to like kind of care about me and Kylie's life more than when we were like, I was 10, I think, when the show started. So it took a few years till people started to like invest maybe in like into our lives and whatever. And things started to shift. But I think another thing that we really had that was really something I'm grateful for is it kind of grew as we got older. So it was a little bit, I want to say, gradual. I have friends who've had an overnight experience. And I don't know if you feel like maybe your experience was slightly overnight or fast.
It was pretty fast.
I as an outsider, I would say your experience was kind of fast.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like you were... Yeah, you like grew really quickly on YouTube and stuff, right? And I think there's a little bit of a difference maybe in impact, but also with like the time of social media. Like, I grew with social media as well as growing with like the fame, I guess. But definitely so many challenges. Definitely. I also think it made me grow up a little faster maybe. There was like a level of maturity that I found. I was always a relatively, I think, mature kid. But I think there was a level of maturity that also had to grow really quickly. Like I was working at a really young age. I was traveling alone at a pretty young age, traveling the world, not alone. I was with, obviously my agent, who's also my really good friend, but, without my parents, without my family, like, and all those things. So a little bit of early growth as well. And I don't know, I'm grateful for my experience, I have to say, because I also know that there are people that might have it, that it might be, really tough for them, and especially like in the mental health space of it all. I think that I've obviously had my moments even as a kid, and I think Kylie and I had to go through like very like adult things at a really young age, and I don't know, like a lot of internet hate at a really young age, which I feel like a lot of us have experienced, and even just like just weird stuff like that. But overall, I am really grateful, because I think it could have been a lot worse. And I think that Kylie and I, the one thing that we really had was a lot of stability, a lot of love, and a like really great support system and really great friends. So it felt like we could remove ourselves a lot of the time and feel really like normal.
Well, also too, I think having your family be all kind of, I never really thought about this until now, which is bizarre because it's so obvious, but it's like, it's all kind of scaling at the same time. So it's like, you and Kylie are going through it at the same time, but also, your other sisters, and then also, even, you know, your parents. And it's like, it's all happening to everyone at once.
Yeah.
So it's like, you can go to anyone, you know, of your closest loved ones and you can have these conversations with anyone. It's like, which I think is probably really helpful. And it's probably also interesting to watch how, you know, your different family members have responded to these things and, you know, their different perspectives and their different responses to it.
Well, they're also older. So we got to see them make mistakes as well. Yeah. We learn from them in positive ways too. But I think that that's where Kylie and I also get kind of the privacy aspect of like our personal lives, which our sisters were always really open with, especially on like the earlier days of our show and all of that. But it's just kind of been something that I think we learned from, not in a negative way at all, but just kind of like took it and said, this is how I would personally deal with like my journey, and no shame or blame to how anyone else would deal with theirs. But I think those are just things you pick up on. So I think there's also an aspect of us being really grateful that we had older siblings that we got to see do things before us or like, like lead us in a way.
I feel like one of the biggest challenges that comes with being in the public eye, especially at your scale, is sort of being a societal punching bag. I again think about this all the time because you reach a certain level of fame, of notoriety, and it is inevitable. It's just inevitable and it's gonna happen. You can't do anything right. Like it's just what happens. How do you deal with that?
I do and I don't, I'd say. I think that it's part of the long journey that I've had of like, I guess that's where like the tough skin aspect comes in. But I'd be lying to you if I said I haven't fallen victim to like,
of course,
oh my God, like that sucks that's like a narrative, or like that's just so not true, or that's not who I am. Like there's definitely a frustration, and me again being a control freak or being someone who like everybody wants to be understood and to feel like I want to live a private life, but then that also kind of means sometimes not having control over a narrative or maybe giving space for someone else to create the narrative. That can get kind of frustrating to feel like, oh, that's a misunderstanding, or like you've completely misunderstood me, and you know, you want to like almost respond to everything or like try and prove people wrong. But I've learned my lesson, and especially as I get older with stuff like that, is like staying like level and being authentic to like exactly who you are and knowing your worth and knowing who you are, and then being able to sit back and like take the high road in a way and be like, you know what? What's the point in addressing something that's one, not even true, and then two, like not going to change anything even if I do. I think that that's almost been my power, is like being able to sit back and be comfortable with it at this point and be like, anybody who needs to know who I am will know who I am. And anybody who really matters to me or who comes close to me, like they'll see. And I almost kind of love the like proving people wrong, or like people might walk into it being like, I have an idea of this because of what I've seen on the internet. And then being pleasantly surprised is like, I'm cool with that. Like I'm happy to be, I'm also like such a Scorpio. I'm like, I don't want to give everybody everything. You know what I mean? Yeah. So when someone means something to me and something feels really special or sacred to me, like I'm really happy that they get to experience that version of me. Totally. And it feels almost special to that person as well. So I can't give you like a straight up answer of like what has helped me or what has changed things or what has fixed, I don't know, whatever. But I think that it's a long process. It is years. I am 28. This journey started when I was 10. And like, I think that it's been a really long time for me to get to where I am now. And it's never going to be, there's never like an end to the like process of healing or the process of like figuring out your way. Like it's always, I don't know, changing and evolving and
absolutely
whatever. Yeah.
So let's get into modeling a bit.
Okay.
I think a lot of people romanticize it and are like, this is the dream. Like this is the dream job, like just being beautiful and, you know, getting to wear these beautiful clothes and doing all these things. But as with all things, there's incredible elements, such as, you know, why people romanticize the line of work. But then there's also, you know, challenges with it that I think are less considered. And I'm curious to hear what have been sort of the parts of modeling that are maybe the most romanticized that don't maybe match that in reality. In the sense, like, you know, not to shit on modeling at all as in any way, or to shit on the experience, or to like take away from the magic that I can imagine that career path can bring, but more to sort of just shed light on the reality of it for the sake of proving to people that the grass is always greener.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I think it definitely goes without saying that, like, there is hair and makeup and lighting on, like, you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
The physical of it is not always that way, right? Like, I think that's with anybody, anything. And I think that you're in the best hands most of the time, and you're in, like, you know, the best setting for your, like, physical and all the things. And so I think that when it comes to, like, you know, someone on a cover of a magazine or, like, in an editorial, they're gonna, like, probably, you know, it's not always that perfect and that shiny.
Totally.
So there's that, but I think that kind of goes without saying. And I think that as for romanticizing it, look, I'm not going to sit here and say that I've had, like, a, you know, a really, like, I've had the toughest journey and, you know, all those things. I think I've been extremely fortunate, but I also have had, you know, my own set of challenges, and whether that be, you know, whether it's overworked or whether it's not getting a job that I would have really loved to get. I think that something that is to be said about anyone who would want to get into it, or that has any idea of it is a lot of, like, self-love, like a big self-love journey.
That's what I was going to ask about.
Yeah, it's like, it's very, you have to have such a strong relationship with yourself to be able to go into it, because it can be cutthroat, and it can be like, you are sometimes like, oh my God, why am I not, you know, enough for this job or whatever. So there are those moments, or, you know, people also in the industry can be really, like, tough or blunt or brutal. And so I think there's those types of things for sure. But again, I'm so grateful. I've had, like, a really beautiful experience, and again, came with some of its challenges as well.
I think a lot of people, myself included, would have assumed, like, oh, this is probably the confidence boost of a lifetime. Like, you know, this being your career path or whatever, being able to do that. But then I think the truth of the matter is, it's like, you're in this sort of business of just looking a certain way in a way. And it's like, in a lot of ways, I think, you know, you do have to figure out how to put your worth elsewhere. Yeah. And I don't know how in the world a young woman could possibly manage that.
Yeah, I think that it also is a lot of, like, I think that it's a lot of having, like, great people around you, a great support system, and great family, great friends. And again, for anyone who would ever want to do it, I think is literally having a great relationship with yourself, enough to be able to go home at the end of the night and still, like, look yourself in the mirror and be happy and love yourself. I think that that's the biggest thing. And
it's also lonely. I've heard through the grapevine about, you know, like, you're very young a lot of the times, like, you know, 16, 17, 18, 19, and you're traveling around alone for the most part.
Yeah, I was it is very lonely. Like, I've had really, you know, dark nights where I've been in, you know, kind of random cities and just hysterically crying myself to sleep because I haven't been home in 3 months, and I've been pretty much alone the entire time. Or I'm on a job and something really, you know, crazy happens at home that I would love to be there for, and I'm being told I can't be. And, like, just there's been a lot of definite moments where I'm like, what is going on? Like, is this all worth it? And then, you know, when I look back on the time that I've had with it so far, it is a really beautiful thing to be able to travel the world the way I have. I probably would have never traveled the way I have.
Totally.
Or the amount that I have had I not had this job. I've met really amazing people. A lot of my friends are because of this job. A lot of cool creative people, a lot of, like, inspiration in my life is like all because of my job. So I feel very grateful for it. I feel very grateful for my experience, and for having a relatively really good experience. I feel really grateful because I have heard a lot of stories from friends of mine and people that I know and peers and stuff that haven't.